After fighting to the limit to save a child who had been swallowed by a lizard-type kaiju, Hoshina managed to maximize his abilities to get inside the kaiju's neck and cut through it, eventually freeing the boy. Although this didn't completely kill the kaiju, Hoshina bought enough time for Captain Mina to use the super-powered Anti-Kaiju Cannon on it. In the end, both Hoshina and the boy were saved. So, hello guys. Today is my day. We will continue the best arc of Kaiju Anime number 8. By the way, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for more. It really helps the channel, and I'd appreciate the support. Thanks. The story begins with Captain Mina, along with leader Ibina, visiting the hospital to visit Hoshina. Captain Mina's arrival because there is something she wants to convey to Hoshina. But before that, Captain Mina bows her head as a form of gratitude to Hoshina for the help given in neutralizing Ome. Hoshina was honored but felt bad that someone like him would get such a thing and asked Captain Mina to stop doing that, because according to Hoshina, he was only doing what should be done as a defense force. On top of that, Hoshina looked relieved and happy after getting news from the Ibina leader that the boy who had been rescued by Hoshina had not received any serious injuries and was now recovering. Captain Mina was truly amazed at Hoshina's ability with a sword. And because of that, by extending her hand to Hoshina like a handshake, Captain Mina offered Hoshina once again to join her army. But again, Hoshina hesitated with that. Hoshina felt that he was very confused. Humbly, Hoshina was very insecure because his ability was only with a sword. Besides that, Hoshina felt that the sword he used in the previous mission could not help. But as a captain, Mina tried to make Hoshina confident that his sword skills would improve. But before Hoshina denied what Mina said, Hoshina was advised to hone his sword skills even further. Join my force and master your craft. That was Mina's request to Hoshina. Hoshina instantly fell silent and said to himself that this was something no one had ever told him after realizing his abilities were lacking. Hoshina recalled past events and what his father and superiors had said, which made sense. His power output was low for firearms, and because of that, he was at a disadvantage. After all, with those conditions, it would be difficult for him to face giant-class kaiju alone. But in essence, with all the considerations and so forth, Hoshina decided to accept Captain Mina's offer to happily join the 3rd Division. And after that, Captain Mina and Leader Ibina left the room, but before reaching the exit, Captain Mina confirmed to Hoshina about the order given to Leader Ibina. In that case, Hoshina ignored what Leader Ibina ordered, and Hoshina confirmed to Captain Mina that it was true. But because of that, also after Hoshina was discharged from the hospital and joined the 3rd Division, Hoshina would henceforth be made to work full-time. A few days later, the scene moves to a training ground where Shinomiya is practicing swordplay with Hoshina. And for the umpteenth time, Shinomiya has not been able to beat Hoshina in her swordplay technique. Hoshina states that Shinomiya's movements still have obvious gaps in her technique, so Hoshina will easily beat her. But in the middle of the training session, the Ibina leader suddenly shouted loudly and intended to confront Hoshina. But the funny thing is that Hoshina instructed the others to get here and told them to disperse immediately. But an unexpected event appeared at the training ground. Captain Mina in uniform. Mina intended to meet with Hoshina because she had something to say. But since Mina saw that Hoshina was busy, Mina stated that this could wait for tomorrow. Then Hoshina declared that the practice was over. But unexpectedly, Kafka and the others asked Hoshina to give them a chance for one more match. But because they felt bad for Mina, Hoshina still wanted to end the practice today. But Captain Mina went and respected the time Hoshina was taking. After that, Hoshina and the others continued their training, and this time we will see Kafka's ability for the umpteenth time against Hoshina. Seeing Kafka's strong spirit, Hoshina praised him. Even though Kafka has so much passion, Hoshina wants to say that passion alone is not enough. But Hoshina is unable to say that in front of others. But according to Hoshina, there is only one thing that will realize that goal, which is not giving up, because there is no future for people who give up. With a smiling face, Hoshina declared in front of Kafka, "Bring it on, rookie." Oh yeah, and that's the end of the Hoshina arc. And for the next story of the Kaiju manga number 8 side B, we get a chance to know the background and the other side of Shinomiya. And let's get started. By the way, if you're enjoying the content, Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. The story begins with an interview with Shinomiya after she joins Division 3. Shinomiya's first statement is her condolences to the victims of the kaiju disaster. Shinomiya states that this may be the reason why Japan is nicknamed the City of Kaiju, and besides, remembering from training sessions, the difference between Yoju and Kaiju is very different. The reporter asked about Shinomiya's weaknesses because, according to the reporter, Shinomiya had shown an outstanding performance. But apparently, Shinomiya felt that it was still not far enough, especially as she was only able to eradicate Yoju. But in essence, the reporter was asking something else if there were any soldiers that caught her attention. But in Shinomiya's mind, unexpectedly appeared the image of Kafka. And at the same time, Kafka was doing something stupid, and it was visible that snot was coming out of his nose. Instantly, the reporter's questions were distracted by Shinomiya, who saw Kafka's strange behavior. Then Shinomiya stated that the person in question was Captain Mina. Judging from all aspects and criteria, Captain Mina has above-average abilities, and that is in the entire division. With the ability to create a hole in the body of a giant-class kaiju in one shot, Mina is truly someone who deserves to be an inspiration or role model. But in essence, in Shinomiya's interview with the reporter, it was about Shinomiya's promise to annihilate all kaiju, and Shinomiya also vowed to defeat kaiju number 9. And then the scene moves to a place where Shinomiya is at the gym. Not only Shinomiya, but several other soldiers are also seen doing the same thing. Shinomiya is a little confused by what was done to the man. But one important thing is that Shinomiya doesn't want Kafka to ruin everything by turning into a Hakaiju like before. When Shinomiya was resting, Hakua approached her and offered her a drink. Shinomiya and the other girls seemed to be talking about Kafka's noisy behavior and other silly behavior. But Hakua seemed to have noticed lately that Shinomiya was always talking about Kafka. Shinomiya showed an expression of annoyance at what they said. Shinomiya felt that there was a misunderstanding. But at the same time, the third vice captain came and asked Shinomiya about swordsmanship. And did Shinomiya know about it? Confidently, Shinomiya stated that she had enough ability about it, and according to her, there were 18 types of techniques. But apparently Hoshina, who heard the explanation, stated that he was just making sure. And besides that, Hoshina asked Shinomiya to practice together in the operating room. But beyond that, Hoshina asked about her interest in crabs. Did Shinomiya like crabs? Hoshina was just making sure because some people have allergies to that food, and Shinomiya stated that it was her favorite food and she didn't have allergies to it. And after that, Hoshina left the room. But it turned out that Akari and Hakua, who heard that, assumed that the 3rd Division captain wanted to treat Shinomiya to crab. But Shinomiya felt that there was something else to ask. And Shinomiya's mind showed an image of Kafka. Is it about Kafka? Does Hoshina want to know about it? Shinomiya tried to get rid of that thought and was suddenly surprised by the commotion they were making. And the next day, Shinomiya in her combat uniform had arrived as promised. Not only Hoshina, but Captain Mina was also there. Shinomiya felt confused by the object in front of her. But Captain Mina stated for Shinomiya to just listen because this was not bad news, so calm down and listen. Shinomiya still feels that this has something to do with Kafka, but unexpectedly, Hoshina gives a special weapon to Shinomiya. Instantly, Shinomiya was surprised to hear what Hoshina said. Is that a special weapon for me? Shinomiya felt relieved that finally her arrival this time was not to be questioned about the Hakaiju in Kafka's body. Shinomiya still couldn't believe that she was given a special weapon because according to Shinomiya, only a captain got it. But then Hoshina explained that it was only in general and they made exceptions according to the situation and conditions. However, Hoshina stated that there was no need to worry too much about it because they basically gave it to Shinomiya based on her abilities. Furthermore, the special weapons were not given because Shinomiya was the daughter of the General Director of the Defense Forces or a former captain of the 2nd Division, but because of Shinomiya's abilities. It is known that this is a special weapon made with Izumo technology in collaboration with our people in the Science Division. In addition, this weapon is still in the prototype category and can still be developed. And after that, Shinomiya saw a sword with a very large size in front of her eyes, a special weapon that was only owned by Shinomiya. Shinomiya was so impressed to see the shape of the weapon she would have, but Hoshina asked if Shinomiya liked it. But according to Captain Mina for now, whether she likes it or not is not important because after all, Shinomiya has to wear it to be sure. And after that, Hoshina instructed Shinomiya to go to the practice area now. Shinomiya felt that it was for the ceremony, but if it was, Shinomiya would be very happy to hear it. But unexpectedly, several other people along with the reporter were already in the same place. It was known that Hoshina invited them because Soldier Shinomiya was going to do something that would definitely attract their attention. Shinomiya was so surprised to hear what Hoshina said, and excitedly and confidently, she was going to test the special weapon she had just obtained. So, know that they, as a defense force, often make special weapons, and only 2 people have ever received them in the 3rd Division, Hoshina and Captain Mina. And since Shinomiya just got a special weapon, she is the 3rd person, and it can be concluded that they have high hopes for Shinomiya. Unexpectedly, with its large size and length, Shinomiya felt that it would be very heavy, but in reality it was very light. So there was an explanation as to why the weapon felt so light despite its size, and that was due to the manufacturing process. The weapon was derived from the shell of a reptilian kaiju that appeared in Hamamatsu last year. The Izumo techs had a hard time manipulating it, but in the end they were satisfied with the tough, lightweight final product. Shinomiya was already in the battle area, and the other men and officers were far away to watch what Shinomiya was about to do. The countdown was heard in the distance, and when the time came, Shinomiya quickly jumped and flew, slashing at the target in front of her. Shinomiya performed perfectly and then moved from place to place, attacking every target in front of her. Shinomiya felt that this was an extraordinary weapon, and not only that, but several other people and scientists who saw it were surprised by the results. 1 minute 30 seconds with an estimated power release of 57% was incredible. But strangely, despite the results Shinomiya got, she felt like she was disappointed, because in her opinion, even though it was very easy to use, it still felt lacking. And no matter how hard she attacked the target, Shinomiya could not measure the performance of this sword. And after Shinomiya did it perfectly, Captain Mina tried to confirm about the Yoju and several others they had captured. And in essence, Captain Mina wanted to do another experiment. She planned to release some Yoju and Honju to be Shinomiya's opponent. And maybe, according to Captain Mina, it would be a worthy opponent. 3rd Division Operations Leader Okunogi confirmed that the estimated level of the captured Honju was 6.2. Shinomiya was so excited when she heard the level of Honju power, and in essence, Captain Mina instructed Shinomiya to prepare and immediately show her abilities. In an experimental area, Captain Mina and others were already in the monitor room with reporters and others to monitor others and the action that Shinomiya was about to take. Then a truck was seen entering with Shinomiya, who was preparing in it. But there was one thing that caught Shinomiya's attention while inside the truck. There was a large crate that looked very familiar. Shinomiya tried to confirm to Hoshina about what was inside the crate, and Hoshina stated that it was another weapon that Izumo Tech made as a prototype. However, because the specifications are much different from the one ordered, they are only keeping it for now. Hoshina stated that in the training area, Shinomiya was allowed to exterminate all kaiju without restraint. And so it came to pass that Shinomiya was in front of the gate of the training area. Shinomiya continued to walk through each place. But when Shinomiya was observing the surroundings, suddenly a large crab claw attacked her. But luckily, Shinomiya had good reflexes and managed to avoid it. A large crab-shaped Yoju will be Shinomiya's opponent. But before that, Shinomiya recalled another question about why Hoshina asked about crabs, and this might be the reason. And we get a flashback of the past about the appearance of the crab Yoju. Initially, this kaiju was discovered by high school students. Some high school students came to visit a house which they thought was a very horror place. And it was precisely in August last year in a mountain town of Isahara, and a terrible incident occurred when they set foot in that place. Unexpectedly, when the high school students approached the house, the abandoned house suddenly shook and moved. A huge crab claw came out of a window, and it was confirmed that it was a crab claw. Hoshina confirmed that one of the students was attacked at the site, and he was severely injured and his right leg was severed. a very good defense and observation for the kaiju. They bury themselves and burrow through the foundations of houses to sneak inside and attack prey that approaches them with their claws. And that's more or less how the kaiju defends and attacks. Then we see Shinomiya with a gun shooting at the giant crab. But it turns out that the standard straightener of a common soldier's weapon does not penetrate the shell of the crab's body. Hoshina, who is watching from the monitor room, is smiling and waiting to see what Shinomiya will do with the situation. Shinomiya put down her weapon and started using the sword she had just gotten. But when Shinomiya prepared to attack, the crab attacked first. But with the special weapon abilities she had, Shinomiya was able to attack the crab's body and hit it right in the head area and killed the crab in one attack. Then Shinomiya moved to another place and jumped from building to building until the time she met the same crab again. This time the Shinomiya got a surprise attack, but it wasn't a big deal to the Shinomiya. She used her sword and pierced the mouth of the crab and made it just die. The power of the sword was very powerful, especially it matched the release of power possessed by Shinomiya. One by one, crabs kept popping up and attacking Shinomiya, but again, it was no big deal. She was able to counterattack and defend very well. Every crab that became her opponent, Shinomiya was very easy to kill them. One by one, the crabs were successfully destroyed by the special sword that Shinomiya had just obtained. Hoshina was so impressed by Shinomiya's actions that it seemed that this level of Yoju was not a suitable challenge for Shinomiya. But after Shinomiya defeated the crab, Shinomiya seemed angry when she found out the previous thing, where Captain Hoshina asked about whether she liked crabs or not. Shinomiya thought that it was Captain Hoshina wanting to invite her to eat instead of being eaten. Then with a serious look, Hoshina stated that it wasn't over yet. There was one person left, the Hanju. Then afterwards, because all that was left was Hanju, Shinomiya then walked around the place and looked for him. But when she was on the roof of the building, Shinomiya saw nothing there. But suddenly, Shinomiya remembered an incident where, at that time, she first learned the identity of Kafka while in the training area. It was a pretty crazy memory, changing and crashing in even while being watched by the defense forces. Then Okonogi tried to confirm to Shinomiya whether she was okay, because Okonogi got information that Shinomiya's vital signs looked abnormal and her heart rate suddenly increased. But Shinomiya confirmed that it wasn't a problem because she was just upset about not finding the kaiju. But since Shinomiya couldn't find the kaiju, the Hoshina instructed her to return to the entrance. But an unexpected event happened. As Shinomiya walked, a large crack appeared under her feet, and it turned out to be a crab with a giant size, confirmed that it was the remaining Hanju. The size and shape this time was huge, perhaps 100 times bigger than the previous one. Shinomiya was annoyed because it seemed like Captain Hoshina was playing a prank on her. But because Shinomiya swore, Captain Hoshina seemed to hear what Shinomiya said, and because of that, Shinomiya got a push-up penalty because she swore. And finally, we see an enormous form that will be Shinomiya's final opponent. She unleashed her full combat power. An electricity flowing from the sword to her feet, Shinomiya then jumped towards the huge crab and hit the head, but it didn't work. The shell was so strong and thick, but Shinomiya didn't give up. She kept at it and attacked it relentlessly. In the end, Shinomiya was surprised that the big crab managed to parry her attack and threw her off. Captain Hoshina seemed to realize that Shinomiya was unable to split the kaiju with a single slash, because according to observations, the kaiju's shell had a greater measure of thickness. It also produced more of its uniorgan liquid. Penetrating that asphalt-covered shell was something that even a platoon leader would find difficult. But behind the enormous power, Captain Mina stated that the Hanju had a weakness. They each had their own ways of defeating the Hanju. But there was one thing that was most impossible for Shinomiya to do. Before entering the area, there were already some freezing bullets in the truck. And if Shinomiya used that, it would be very effective because it was able to hinder the kaiju's movement and then attack it with special weapons. Maybe that was the right tactic and choice, but it seemed Shinomiya continued to attack without using any other strategy. What action will Shinomiya take? Attack after attack was made, but it was to no avail. This was unexpected. Shinomiya looked very tired fighting the giant crab. But suddenly her mind was distracted by the truck that was there because she thought it was a truck full of weapons. As she recalled, the vice captain probably told her to use standard weapons as well, but that would be the same as running backwards. And there was a voice that asked, "Is Shinomiya okay?" Because it was clear that the expression on her face showed emotion. But with full determination, Shinomiya tried to attack the giant crab again. However, the big crab easily parried her attack, and this time it managed to grasp her sword with its claws, sending Shinomiya crashing into a large truck. Now the big crab has taken the sword that Shinomiya had. She felt that now she needed a weapon that was heavier and larger, because the previous special weapon was very ineffective, even though it had a light size, but its destructive power was very lacking. Suddenly, Shinomiya was distracted by a large crate from inside the truck, and it was an axe with a larger size than the previous special weapon, a prototype weapon made by Izumotech. There was no other choice. Inevitably, Shinomiya had to use it, because there were no more weapons she had against the Hanju. Seeing Shinomiya about to use the weapon made Hoshina panic and told her to stop. But, in essence, Shinomiya ignored what Hoshina said, because according to the specifications, it would really make Shinomiya want to use it. She ran so fast without thinking about the risks, and sure enough, because the power was so enormous, Shinomiya was thrown because she was unable to use her weapon so heavy and had extraordinary power. Suddenly, Shinomiya felt desperate. She felt that there was no other way. Should she just run away or be rescued beforehand by Kafka? But Shinomiya would not let that happen. With great confidence, she grabbed the huge axe again and made the people in the monitor room panic. Not waiting long, with the release of 60% power, Shinomiya jumped and attacked the crab until she finally managed to split and destroy part of the body of the giant crab. And it turns out that the weapon has another special ability, and it lies in a button on the trigger. And after she managed to split part of the giant crab's body, she returned to attack it with full power, along with the abilities possessed by the weapon. With full power, Shinomiya prepared and jumped to attack the crab until in the end the attack actually succeeded in destroying the entire body of the giant crab. His body was completely destroyed, and some parts of his intestines were unraveled. Shinomiya finally managed to defeat the giant Hanju, even though its shell was very thick and large. The captain who monitored Shinomiya felt that this was very remarkable. She managed to attack the Hanju's vital point and eradicate all of them. Besides, they didn't expect Shinomiya to master that weapon. It is known that the material of the weapon is the Uniorgan Hanju that the defense forces eradicated in Shinagawa a year earlier. The weapon will produce a very strong bioelectric potential that will contract the muscle fibers, and then it will release into the air like a shock wave. And that's more or less how the weapon works. And in essence, because Shinomiya successfully completed the task given by the defense force, and also because she had shown the ability to master the weapon, Shinomiya would be given a special weapon for herself, and Shinomiya respectfully accepted the special weapon. A few hours later, the scene moves to a cafeteria. We see a conversation between Kafka and Shinomiya. They both talked about training. But there was one other reason why Shinomiya didn't come to the training this time, and that was because of an important matter with Captain Hoshina. But suddenly, Kafka showed a paper containing the results of his training. But when Shinomiya showed the results too, Kafka was so surprised. 1 minute, 30 seconds, that's so fast that Kafka couldn't believe it. Shinomiya felt that there was one reason why she thought of Kafka every day. And that reason was when she was saved by Kafka. Shinomiya felt that she still had a debt to Kafka. Why, at the core, the Domiya felt upset and wanted to repay that kindness. Shinomiya promised that with the abilities he had now, then the next time Kafka was in danger, Shinomiya would come to help him with her new weapon. In addition, Shinomiya will promise that at that time, she will make Kafka feel stupid again. A very epic arc from Shinomiya. And that's the last arc on Shinomiya's part, and then move on to Narumi. What is his background and what is his story as a defense force? But before that, like and subscribe first, guys. Thank you. Chapter 9, Wood Number 8, Side B. The story begins with a civilian named Narumi standing in the corner of the city along with the kaiju head he is holding. And because of that, the platoon leader was surprised to see a civilian standing with a headless kaiju corpse. Then at a base in Ariake Harbor, Shinomiya is seen training with Narumi. You in the middle of training, Mr. Hasegawa told them to stop. Narumi arrogantly said that if it wasn't for Mr. Hasegawa telling him to stop, Shinomiya would have lost just like that. Shinomiya sits up and thanks Mr. Hasegawa for his training, and Mr. Hasegawa can't believe that Shinomiya defeated Narumi. He states that Shinomiya seems to have progressed faster in a short period of time. And it turns out that, guys, before the battle between Shinomiya and Narumi, we were told a previous incident where at that time Princess Isao Shinomiya really wanted to train with Narumi. But there is one condition if Narumi wants to obey Shinomiya's will, and that is if the Shinomiya manages to defeat the platoon leader before the game Narumi is playing is over. We see Narumi casually sitting while playing a game. And at the same time, Narumi shows the result of the game played, a part where it was a scene against the final boss, and after that, he actually managed to finish this game. Narumi stated that if Shinomiya could not defeat a platoon leader, then he would not participate in the training. Shinomiya firmly stated that she would defeat the platoon leader before Narumi finished the game. And at the same time, from the entrance, a platoon leader entered and prepared to be Shinomiya's opponent. But because the platoon leader saw Shinomiya was tired, she offered her a break. But Shinomiya said that there was no need. That woman's name was Shinonome. She was so surprised to hear that Shinomiya was still full of energy. On the other hand, we see Narumi enjoying his game. It's his last chance to fight the final boss. But unexpectedly, Mr. Hasegawa came and kicked Narumi from behind and told him to stop slacking off on duty. Narumi was very surprised to see Mr. Hasegawa's arrival and was very upset because this would make Narumi's hard work for 1 month in the game go to waste. And in essence, Mr. Hasegawa is dragging Narumi back into the office because there is so much work piling up. However, Narumi refuses and runs away and lets Mr. Hasegawa do the work. The scene then shows the situation in 9 years ago, a city that has been invaded by mantis-shaped kaiju. At that time, the defense forces were trying to exterminate the kaiju who attacked the city. But there is one thing that attracts attention. When one of the soldiers was attacked by the kaiju, Mr. Hasegawa came and blocked the kaiju attack with one hand. And after that, he threw it and attacked it with a gun until part of the kaiju's body was destroyed. Mr. Hasegawa is a platoon leader of the 1st Division. At that moment, Mr. Hasegawa reached out to the soldier and helped him to stand up. After that, they continued the attack to eradicate the kaiju. They fired shot after shot to finish off the kaiju, and a few hours later, they finally managed to clear the area of the mantis-type kaiju invasion. Then, a monitor room reported that a civilian and a child were left behind. And not only that, it turns out that the Yonju are getting closer. Without thinking, Mr. Hasegawa immediately headed to the location where the kaiju had appeared, but an unexpected event caught his eye. A civilian managed to sever the head of the mantis-type kaiju with great ease, and at the same time, a report stated that the Yoju mark had disappeared and all the kaiju in the area had been exterminated. Narumi casually asked them, "Are you the defense forces? Why are you late?" Then Mr. Hasegawa asked Narumi, "Did he defeat the kaiju? And how did you do it?" Narumi then explains that he did that by taking one of the hands of a dead kaiju. Then Narumi explained how to defeat it by destroying its core organs. Mr. Hasegawa felt that it was impossible if done by ordinary people, because basically to generate power, every soldier who fights kaiju has the power of the uniform they wear, whereas Narumi didn't. But with that, he already had considerable power, and in essence, Hasegawa received information that a giant Yoju was heading towards the location. And because of that, they had to quickly retreat from the location. Not only that, they also invited Narumi to evacuate immediately. But when Narumi complained about the order, suddenly an attack appeared from the area. A giant kaiju that has a size much larger than before comes and attacks them. But when the defense forces were trying to shoot at the kaiju, Narumi instinctively stepped forward and attacked at close range with the weapon he got from the Yoju body he had previously obtained. Narumi's actions are truly insane. Without wearing a kaiju uniform, he attacked the giant kaiju's body parts and cut it down. But due to the difference in size and strength, Narumi didn't completely defeat the kaiju. In the end, the kaiju manages to counterattack and send Narumi flying. When Hasegawa managed to rescue Narumi, he continued to babble and stated that he was still able to fight. But since they had to evacuate, they had to do it by force. But in an unexpected turn of events, while Narumi and Mr. Hasegawa were off guard, the kaiju counterattacked from an unknown point. But a massive flash of lightning struck the kaiju from the sky and shattered the kaiju's body. They were all shocked to see a captain with kaiju powers attacking a lizard-type kaiju with a single strike. He was Captain Isao Shinomiya. The last successful mantis-type kaiju was destroyed, and the mission was complete. And that's part of the story of the Kaiju Manga number 8, Side B. After we get a story and background about Hoshina, Shinomiya, and Narumi, we will continue the next episode. Thank you for those of you who have watched and followed the Kaiju Side B story. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. It really helps the channel, and I'd appreciate the support. I'm Nim. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye, guys.